Hey, everybody. How many of you guys have been here for me doing this kind of a thing before, just by a show of hands? All right, this will be exciting then. So, uh, you know, when I was about 30 years old, I found myself sitting in a room looking at a tree for about 7 years. I was meditating most of the time, and I was doing two things primarily. One is three. I was meditating. I was reading non-dual teachers. That was a big thing for me at the moment. And I was worrying about money. And that was the thing that's how I occupied myself. And I'd been married. I was married for most of that time, much to my wife's chagrin. She's like, "Why are you still sitting in this room looking at this tree?" And then we decided to get pregnant, and when she got pregnant, I said, "Oh, I have to go make money. I guess I have to do that." And the issue for me was that, in my upbringing, and my dad was a CEO, etc., what I saw was that business, making money, was something that was violent to what I'd spent the last 7 years doing. So I had to create a vision for myself that, hey, I needed business to be something that was actually a spiritual avenue for me, something that actually created more self-discovery for myself and for the people that I interacted with. And that was my vision. And I had no examples of this vision at all. I've since have a whole bunch of them, but at the time I had none because had this very diametric idea in my head of like that you can do business or you can be a good person. Yeah, you can laugh at me. I laugh at myself about it all the time. I had this vision, and I also thought to myself that the tools of business that I had learned, because I had done international stock lending, and I had done a whole bunch of stuff before I sat in a room, and I knew that if I was going to be really connected with myself, that those tools would have to change. The tools I used would have to be different. Right? International stock lending, we were in a cage that was soundproofed, and the guy next to me, I swear a lot, so be prepared. The guy next to me would say things like, "Okay, so why don't you guys go out into a field, get some strawberries and champagne, and go screw yourselves," right? Like that was like the common way of negotiating, and that's what I had learned. And so I was like, this isn't going to work for me. So I had to figure it out. And so my whole life has progressed now. I've done venture capital. I do philanthropy. I teach. I go into companies and I help them with their cultural issues. And everything that's happened is because of that vision. I just had this very simple vision, like, oh, I want to do this. But what happened was the tools that I created were more effective, and people started coming to me and saying, oh, wow, I want to be involved in this. I want to learn how to do it this way. And so this whole thing happened, and that's what a vision does. And as a venture capitalist or as a philanthropist, there's three things that I look for in an entrepreneur that are just non-starters, meaning if they don't have them, I don't deal with it. And I don't invest, and I don't have another meeting, and one of those things is a vision. So what does a vision mean? A vision means that you are living in a future right now that doesn't exist. That's what it means. So let me give you an example. Gandhi didn't go around saying, we're going to be free one day. He acted as a free man. And when they had this big salt mine march, are you guys familiar with the salt mine march, right? He had, something like hundreds of thousands of people. There was 20 guards. They were going to take the salt mine. And they walked in 4 by 4 and just got beaten down. They didn't take it. They could have easily taken it by force, but they didn't. They just walked up. The guards beat them. The next set of 4 came in. The guards beat them. And the New York Times reported at that moment, it's not a question of whether the Indian people will be free of British rule, they already are. That's what I mean by living a future that doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Is there a question around that? Yeah, it's sometimes hard for people to grok. So obviously this means, like if we just saw this beautiful presentation from Amanda, obviously 1 billion people aren't using VR today, right? But he's living as if that reality is coming true. But there's other things that he's doing, like all VCs are doing, or all entrepreneurs are doing, that are living in that reality. I'll give you an example on a business point of view. The guy who started Salesforce.com, his first hire, or second, was a headhunter, a recruiter. So the only reason that you do that is because you think you're going to scale to a tremendous amount of people in a very short period of time. And hiring people is the number one priority if you're going to do that. So he was living as if he was already scaling. He was preparing for the scaling already. That's how you do it. So that's one of the things that's really important in vision. So I got asked today to help you create the vision for transformative tech. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to do it by creating an X Prize. And so all of you guys are going to be thinking about how to create an X Prize in the session. And for those of you who have been here with me, the thing that you know is that I don't do a lot of talking. Most of this is going to end up being an exercise, or a series of exercises. So that's how we're going to do it. And we're going to look at all the things that are required to have a vision, and not like the old-fashioned vision. Or the old-fashioned vision was the kind of business that I can't do, is kind of like, I'm determined to get there and we're going to do it, rah, right? And that's there. You can't lose that. But if you're going to do it in a way that actually makes you feel like a better human at the end of the day, one that doesn't burn you out. So one of the things that I realized as a venture capitalist was that most CEOs, when they're finished with their company, they spend a couple years in their pajamas, right? There's a psychological test that was done for CEOs. They took a whole bunch of CEOs, they put them in a room, and they said, you can't work, you can't read, you just get to hang out with each other. 3 days later, they brought in a series of psychologists to come into the room, and they said, we want you to assess the psychological state of these people, but you just can't talk about career. And it was determined to be a house full of depressed people, right? And it's not that they're depressed, it's that they have been giving and giving and giving for so long, or pushing for so long, that when that stops, the body naturally, and I can go into the reasons for it, but the body naturally just goes, ugh, right? Which is why most CEOs I know, when they go on vacation, they get sick, right? Yeah. Okay. So what is it that's different about holding a vision? So the first thing that's different about holding a vision, if you're coming from a place that's deeply connected, is that you need to be connected in the vision, right? So a lot of the times where we go into our vision is we have a mental idea and we say, okay, that's cool. And then we have a determination for a short period of time, typically. And then that determination runs out and we move into shame. So let me give you an example. How many people here, this is great. Here's my first question of the day. We'll see how many people want to be honest. How many people here have been telling themselves that they should be doing something for more than a decade? Yeah, and it hasn't been happening, right? So that's determination. That's how determination works in our system. I really got to get on that treadmill. And then get on the treadmill and you do it for like 3 weeks and then you don't do it for a couple days and you go, oh man, I'm not getting on the treadmill, and then you're like, this is horrible, and then you feel bad about it, and then that creates more not getting on the treadmill. And then one day you get determination again and you get on the treadmill again for some short period of time, or whatever the thing that you're telling yourself you should do. Be more patient, be less angry. And so instead of using determination, the request is to use faith, right? It's a faith that's happening. The thing that I think people didn't really understand about Gandhi is most of his time he was sitting and he was weaving. It wasn't like he was like 60 hours a day, 60-hour weeks, working really hard, right? It wasn't the determination, though there's a part of that. It was more of a faith that was happening. So anyway, so the things that we're looking at in creating a new vision is, one is a sense of connection is really important. And the other one is living as if it's already happening is a really important aspect of holding a vision. So right now, we're going to start feeling what that's like instead of me talking and telling you what it's like. which is the last thing that's really important, is that we have to feel to hold a vision. Right? Because if we're not feeling the stuff that, let me explain it to you this way. There's somebody in the crowd here, her name is Gina. Gina, can you raise your hand? I'm assuming you're here. Yeah, this is Gina. And Gina works for a company X, which is part of the Alphabet companies. And one of the things that she just did about a week ago or something is the Day of the Dead, right? And what they did in their organization is that they created this place for all the technologies that they created that failed, that didn't get off the ground. And they mourned those technologies, right? And the first year, I think it was something like 200 people came, and this year it was like 500 people came to the thing, right? Because if we don't feel the pain of the loss, right, then we're going to burn out. And we're going to have an experience of that in a couple minutes where you get to actually feel the difference and the energy that you get from actually allowing yourself to feel. Unlike, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers of the world, or where the challenge is there and they suffer all this loss and they're like, boo, right? No, we actually have to feel. That's, this is reality. And that feeling allows us to be energized. And so just as a quick example of this, I would say that most entrepreneurs I meet don't have a vision. They have maybe a goal or they have a mission, but they don't actually have a vision. And the reason they don't have a vision is because they have to feel something, or they have to risk feeling something, like risk failing, or risk being wrong, or risk, I think to highlight it, is they have to say to themselves, basically, I would rather live like this and fail than to not attempt it. Right? And that requires you to actually have emotional fluidity and actually allow yourself to feel. So we're going to experiment with all those three things. And the way that we do it is that we face each other. So all the chairs in this room are about to move. You're going to pick a partner, and you're going to face each other, sitting close because we don't have a lot of room. So does that make sense what I'm saying? So pick a partner and sit face to face, shoulder to shoulder. Okay, shh, this isn't talking time. Just go, yep, just like those two men are doing. You guys, can you actually just move your chairs? So your backs of your chairs are facing each other. Yep, just turn all the way around. So you should have direct eye contact like these guys are doing. This is a great example. If you're standing in the back, there's chairs up here. If you don't want to participate, I just ask that you leave the room. Shh. Okay, so what I just said was, if you're in the back and you don't want to participate, it's just best if you leave the room, because the distraction of any kind of noise, or be very, very silent in it, that would be great. There's plenty of chairs up here if you do want to participate. If you actually want to feel it in your body instead of just intellectually grok it. Yep. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right, so go ahead and look at the person in the eyes across from you. And be prepared, you're going to do this for a while. So we're going to do this in silence. So shh, yep. So oftentimes in business, the thing that we learn is that eye contact is a form of negotiation. This is not what this is. Please you do not need to look at me at all. Do you need a partner? Yeah? Is there anybody else who needs a partner in the room? Could you come on over? There's a gentleman. Okay, those two have found it. Is there somebody from the back who's willing to come and, oh, look, we have somebody for you, right behind you. Yeah, great. Okay. So there's no need to look at me. I'm just going to talk, and I don't need any of your visual attention at all. So what we're doing right now, what's starting to happen in your system, is that your oxytocin levels in your brain are going up, which is the connection chemical of the brain. It's what women feel when they're breastfeeding or if you're snuggling with your kids or something like that. And so your job here is just to feel connected with yourself and with the person across from you, which means that you don't need them to think about you in any particular way. You're not trying to present yourself or influence them. You might find a physical constriction in your system and see if you can just let that go. One of the visions that we have, many visions that we have coming to a conference, is that we're going to get to connect with people. Some people's minds might have just said, no, I just want good business contacts, networks. But all of us have had dozens of meetings that were good meetings, but we never talked to the person again because there was no real sense of connection. So what we really want is good networking with deep connection. And so here's an opportunity. Part of you might be wanting the person across from you to feel comfortable. That's not your job. It's just to be with them as they are. Part of you might want to be more comfortable. That's also not your job. It's just to be with what you are. As soon as you try to be something, you're out of connection just a little bit. Throughout our days, we do little things that bring us a little bit out of connection. We show off a little bit, or we don't let somebody's compliment all the way in, or want someone to be different than what they are, want ourselves to be different. This is a moment where none of that's necessary. At about this time, you're probably feeling a difference in your body. It's more comfortable. And see if you can take it just a step further and just drop any kind of defense that you might have, any kind of protection. Allow any discomfort that's there. So we're going to do an experiment now. You can keep staring at each other. You don't need to look at me for any of this. But the first experiment is we're going to live as if the future is already there. And we're going to see what it's like to live that way and to not live that way. So I want you to take a moment and I want you to think about all the things that the person across from you might need from you, want from you, ask you to be connected with them. I'm sure you can make some assumptions. Maybe they need you to be smart or good looking or emotionally available, whatever. And just feel what that's like in your whole body. What does that do to your system? When you're worried about what they need from you to be connected. And now, assume that you're already connected with them. Live as if the connection is already there. As if you have a shared human experience. You both want the same things. You want to be happy. You want to be loved. You want to have an impact. You want to live your purpose. So there's already a connection there. And feel what that does in your system. What did your body do? What did your nervous system do? Okay, staying in that same position, close your eyes for a minute, take a rest. And we're going to do the same experiment internally. See what it's like to be with yourself when you're thinking of all the things you need to do to be okay with yourself. Go to the gym, make more money, invent a revolutionary technology, be better to your wife, get a different husband, whatever it is. And feel what that does to your system. What happened to your muscles? What happened to your stomach? And now I want you to see what it's like to actually assume the revolutionary thought that you are perfect just the way you are. That the only thing you actually have is this moment, and nothing can be changed in this moment. So you're assuming your vision that I'm actually connected just the way that I am. How else could you be connected? Go ahead and open your eyes again, looking at the person across from you. Some of you might have noticed that when you're looking at the person across from you, you kind of disconnect a little bit, you get spacey. See if you can bring your whole self to this meeting of two people. So one of the evolutionary features of humanity is that we learn to assess people inside of about 2 seconds. Whether you like it or not, you've assessed the person across from you, stranger or otherwise. And so I want you to use that assessment in the next exercise that we're going to do. I would like one of you guys to raise your hands. Out of every pair, just have one raise their hand. Yeah. Okay, you're going to go first in this exercise. Yeah. Shh. And I'm going to ask you to give the person, not yet, give the person across from you a compliment. So not going to do it yet, just hold on, take a moment. And when I ask you to give the compliment, I'm going to ask you to do it in one sentence. Just one sentence. So this isn't a discussion. Okay, go ahead and share your one compliment with the person across from you. One sentence. Yeah. All right, so now the person who had their hand down, it's going to be their job to share one compliment back. Go ahead and try that out. One sentence, quick. Okay. So a compliment was given, and most likely it was not fully received. All right, this is when, as a facilitator, you go, nailed it. So this is the experiment about actually feeling something, like the Day of the Dead, actually feeling it. So we're going to ask the first person to go again with a new compliment. I'm sure you have found two. And the person who's receiving this time, I'm going to ask you to feel it completely. And before you do it, let me explain. If you're not feeling the compliment completely, what you're basically saying is, hey, you who just gave me a compliment, you're a liar. You don't know me well enough, blah, 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 blah. Right? So why don't you just accept this compliment fully and see what it's like, see what it does in your whole nervous system if you fully allow it. Okay, go ahead. So from my perspective, there was about 10 times as much laughter and a whole bunch of more smiles. Yeah. And do you feel what that just did to your connection? Did you feel what that just did to your energy level? This is what I mean when I say to have a vision in a way that's connected, that actually deepens your path, that we need to feel. So we're going to do it the other way now. So the person who hasn't given the second compliment, please give a second compliment. And again, the person who's receiving, feel it all the way. Don't call the person across from you a liar. Okay, go ahead. Okay. And again, for the person who just felt the compliment completely, feel what it did to your energy level. Feel what it did to your emotional state. So as we go through the exercise of creating an X prize or brainstorming X prizes, this is what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to stay deeply connected with yourself, I'm asking you to feel instead of just be in your head about it. Because unless the vision comes from inspiration and faith, we'll never achieve it. And I'm going to ask you to live as if that vision is already here with us. Okay, if you want to thank your partner, Stacy, you can get up and thank your partner any way that you want to. Yeah. Okay, shh. Go back to seated in those places. You're going to come back to this partner in a second, so you don't have to face me. Just sit down. Shh. A lot to go through. Okay. So the other thing is, so that's what you need to have the vision. Just to allow yourself to have the vision, you have to feel the pain of maybe not accomplishing it. You have to be in a state of connection for a vision to work. But once you have the vision, to succeed at that vision is a whole nother thing, right? And this is where what used to be called determination, I'm going to change that name a little bit, though it's not a bad description, it's just not a holistic description. There's some other things that have to be done. The first one is there has to be accountability. And as soon as most people think of accountability, they think of shame, right? Because it's like it's the craziest thing. It doesn't matter if I'm doing philanthropy or venture capital or if I'm coaching somebody. As soon as the idea of self-accountability comes up, there's like an allergic reaction to it. And the allergic reaction to it is natural because usually what happens is that 10 years of telling yourself what to do thing. But it's not the accountability that we're actually allergic to, it's the shame. So there needs to be like loving accountability to create a vision. If you want it to not like pull your energy out of you in the creation of this vision. So we're going to do an experiment around that too. The second thing that's really important is what I mentioned a little bit, which is faith over determination. So, and this bleeds into the third thing, which is faith isn't, I'm going to get there through such and such method. And faith isn't, I'm going to get there by a certain amount of time. There's a great guy, I can't remember, he was a admiral in the Navy. He got captured by the Viet Cong, and he was asked, what was the difference between the people who made it through the camps and survived and the people who didn't survive? And he said, oh, it's easy. The people who survived had faith. Stockdale, thank you. He said they had faith. And the people who didn't survive, he said they were optimists. Right? And his differentiation was the people who had faith, they just knew that it was going to happen. The people who are optimists were like, I'm going to get out by Thanksgiving. And when Thanksgiving passed, blah, right? So having a vision is something that it doesn't determine on the way that the path in which it happens, and you're not set on when it's going to happen. You're just set on the fact that it's going to happen. And you're living the future right now, so it's actually happening. And you're being an example of that happening. So that's the other thing. Those are the other two parts. One is the faith, right? And I'm not talking about faith like I have faith in God. I have faith in something. I have faith that this is going to occur, and it is faith. And faith isn't, from an intellectual point of view, one of the things that we think faith is we think that faith is a belief system, right? But faith isn't that. Faith is an emotional state. It's not a belief system. So close your eyes for a second and feel the difference in your systems. So let's do that. So close your eyes, and I want you to feel what it is to be determined to a goal. You all have goals. Each one of you has a goal. And feel what it's like to be strongly determined to get to that goal. You'll notice what it does in your body. You'll notice what it does in your gut, in your nervous system, in your muscles. And now imagine you just have faith that you're going to get there. And it's an emotional state. Just allow the emotion of faith in. Just like you allowed the compliment in. What did that do to your body? Which one takes more energy? Which one gives you more energy? If you're going to fulfill a vision, you need energy to do it. You can't be draining yourself all the time. Okay, back into your pairs. Again, facing each other, face to face. We're going to do some experiments on these three things. Let's do it silently this time because it'll go a little quicker. I'm going to need the slide in a second. I don't have the... Oh, does that tell me how much time's left?
We have it. You have an hour left.
Okay, I might end a little early.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, shh. Again, in silence, again, looking at each other. You don't need to look at me at all. You thought you got out of this, but you didn't. First of all, I'd just like to thank all of you guys for being so willing to do this with me. So let's do that same exercise with each other in a minute. Let's just get back to connection. So silence. Shh. Can you guys close the door from the outside? Thanks. One of the ways that humans learn is through titration. When babies walk, they don't just get up and walk and never fall down. They walk and crawl and walk and crawl and cruise. So you are titrating right now in and out of connection. Yeah. So again, there's nothing to present, nothing to defend. No accommodation you need to make. Watch if you're defending yourself by retreating, becoming transed out, spaced out. So the first exercise we're going to do is, I want you all to do the same thing that we just did, but with the person across from you. So what that means is, I just want you to feel what it's like to be determined to connect with this person. As a venture capitalist, I get this a lot. No talking, just no talking. Yeah. As a philanthropist, I get this a lot. Person walks into the meeting and they are determined to connect with me. Notice what's happening in your body and your system. Your muscles, your mind. All right. Now, just have faith that you're going to connect with, that you are connected with this person. In fact, you might have looked at them in the eyes longer than you did your wife this week, or husband. Just feel the faith of the connection. What would your life look like if you walked around the world with this faith? That everybody actually wants to feel connected. And your job is just to live that future in the moment, being connected with yourself and them. And that's all the invitation that's necessary. All right, so now we'll do the second experiment, which is the shame experiment. So all of you in this room, again, being quiet, we're going to keep looking at each other. Everybody in this room did something to disconnect. You presented yourself in a particular way. You fronted, as Snoop Dogg would say. You bragged, maybe. You played it small, maybe. You didn't speak your mind because you didn't want to offend. Everybody here, sometime this morning in this conference, is disconnected. Sometime just even in this seat across the person, there were some things that you did that created a little bit of disconnection between you guys. And see what it's like to feel bad for that, to feel guilt and shame for that in your system. What does that do to your body? Now let's see what it's like to actually just be accountable without any shame, right? So the idea here is to allow the truth to be there and just know that everybody has experienced this. There's no need to have shame, and just the acknowledgement of it fixes it. Right? So I want each of you guys to think about one of the ways in which you did disconnect, one of the ways in which you weren't fully human with another person, presented, tried, played it small, whatever. And I'm going to ask you guys to share it with each other. Again, just one or two sentences, just a quick share of one of the ways in which you disconnected this morning from somebody else, one of the ways in which you retreated. So go ahead and one of you raise your hands, please. Yeah, you're going to go second. Okay, back to connection. I'll tell you when it's ready. Yeah. Okay. So again, just one or two sentences. If you make this a long explanation, you're also dropping out of connection. There's a difference between saying, one of the ways in which I disconnected is that I was anxious about making the speech, and I didn't have faith. And that's a far more connected thing than saying, one of the ways I disconnected today was because I was nervous about making a speech. I mean, I think it's because I had some coffee, and it's also because my wife gave me a phone call about the smoke, and so no explanation, just accountability, no shame. Okay, go ahead and share. You can put it up now. Okay. Fall back into silence. Get back into connection with each other. Don't need to look at me. Okay. And now the person who raised their hands can share. Go ahead. Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead and close your eyes, take a rest. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, in a minute, just thank the person across from you in any way that feels comfortable, and then sit right back down in your seat and stay there. Okay, go ahead. Don't move your seats, just sit down. Okay. Shh. You got a couple more experiments to run. But before we do, I'd just like to hear, how is this for people? What are you guys seeing? What are you? Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Awesome. Intellectually, what did you guys see? Go ahead and raise your hand, speak loudly if you have, yeah, please.
I felt like the ego takes a big place in front of the true self.
Ah,
It's very easy to identify when you're being mindful
yeah,
and encroaches.
yeah. And so what he said was that he sees that the ego getting in the way of the true self. And what was the last part, just so I can say it exactly?
Like when you're mindful, it's just so much easier to be aware when it actually comes and picks up on you.
Yeah, exactly. When you're mindful, it's so much more easy to be aware of what's happening. A lot of the times for me, one of the things I learned in business was that I couldn't just sit and meditate and get anything done. So I had to actually learn how to meditate with people or be mindful with people. And this is one of the techniques I do it, is I constantly look for the connection. And what I've experienced is that sitting on your cushion meditating, it has great benefit, but you could be going down a trail for a long time because it's really hard to see what the result is, right? Most people, when they're meditating, are trying to get somewhere. Like, one day I'll be calm, one day I won't get angry, blah, 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 right? And they don't actually know if that's, but when you're with somebody and you're trying to get somewhere, the results are immediately bad, right? If I'm sitting with somebody and I'm trying to get them to buy a product, it usually doesn't work. But if I'm connecting with them and talking to them about the product, it usually ends up in a sale if there's any kind of real need for it. So that's one of the things that I learned, is that connection between people in business is and the vulnerability that requires is the key to the path, for me, of finding out how to make business a spiritual path. What else was seen? Or yes, please.
So we all talk about connection.
Can you speak really loudly?
Sure.
Yeah.
We all talk about trying to connect, and I'm realizing how much a lot of it is fighting disconnection or fighting the will to disconnect.
What do you mean by that? Fighting
Fighting.
it. Oh, that's beautiful. Right. Yeah, that it actually, the effort is in the not connecting. Yeah. And that's something that I say oftentimes, is that I gauge efficiency. So I was just talking to a friend. I'm running 15 projects right now. Do not take this as an invitation, people, please. I'm running 15 projects right now, and I have about 10 emails a day. That's my life, which is amazing to me, that I actually have less and less emails the more. And so the way I gauge my effectiveness or my efficiency isn't by speed. Like the supercharger, Cobra is not the most efficient car. The most efficient thing is through enjoyment. Like, I know that as I'm enjoying myself, I'm more efficient. And it's the same principle that you just spoke to. That's beautiful. What else was? Yes, please.
I felt like I could see his future unfolding.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so true. Yeah, right behind her. We have filters on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I was in a company recently and I was trying to teach that about those filters, and I call them projections, but basically all the learnings, all of the things that have happened to us in our past, we're assuming are happening right now. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yes, please.
It's such a wonderful reminder that you did this just miscellaneous, that we could connect with anyone in the room. We
Yep.
happen to connect with one, but it's such a great reminder that we could all connect,
Yeah.
or we all are connected.
Beautiful. Yeah, well seen. One or two more. Anybody else? I'm looking. It's hard for me to see with the light, so all the way in the back. Really loud.
Yeah, I realized the hardest thing for me was breaking the ice. You know, and when someone's standing on a stage telling you to look in someone else's eyes, it sort of gave me an excuse to connect.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the breaking the ice, that anxiety up front. This is exactly the moment of living in a future assumed. Right? Like you're living in the future that you want. It's like, of course, everybody wants to break the ice. Let's find out. How many people here enjoy breaking the ice with people and learning new things about other people? How many people? So at least a majority, yeah? So you got pretty good odds. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd like to see if there's a way to replicate the quality of the eye contact and what it does to our body and with technology, because that's true connection at a very high quality.
You want to see if you can replicate, speak a little louder for me, the quality.
I want to see if we can replicate the quality of the eye contact and what it does to our bodies, but do it through technology.
Through technology.
Because
Yeah.
that's the real quality connection. If you can do that, that's a very good quality.
Yep. Right. Yeah. So most of technology today drives usage through dopamines. And how do we drive technology through oxytocin? That is the question. Right. Right. And the thing is, it works. What I know about oxytocin is it works. And the fact that, like, if I do a 2-day seminar with 24 people, it's about 50 people 50% of those people want to continue doing the work in some way. Minimum. Can continue and can afford to do the work. So yeah, it works. People want connection. It is such an innate human quality in us. Yeah. Last one, yeah.
I'm interested to hear if this is sort of male or female. I had this unbelievable amount of love that I felt for him that I would do I don't know him, and
Yeah.
I would do anything for him. It was so overwhelming to my body what I wanted to help him be and just love him. And
Yeah.
then there was this when I did
So let me just I'm gonna pick on you just a little bit, and I love what you say, and so I'm gonna do two things. One is, what's the difference between helping and loving? Nope, from her. Thank you.
I guess I don't have a difference. I would help someone I love, and I would love someone that I help. I don't think I differentiate.
Let's find out. Let's do this as an experiment. This is cool. We'll take a couple of seconds to do this. Go ahead and face your partners again. Yeah. Get back into connection. It's so cool is that you can run these experiments anytime. We try to figure out our emotions through intellect, but we can actually figure them out this way. So take a moment, shh, everybody, yeah. Take a moment and really reconnect with the person across from you. We'll give it a minute. Now, I want you to feel what it would be like if you just loved this person unconditionally. It doesn't mean you don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean you're going to betray yourself for them. It just means that you're going to love them unconditionally. What does that do in your whole system? What does it do to your body? How many thoughts are you having compared to normal seconds? And now I want you to feel what it's like to want to help the person. Right? There's something that you can do for this person to help them become better or more happy or this is probably a more subtle shift, but feel what the shift is between love and help. Okay, so you can stop looking at each other for a second. What was the difference for you?
I think that's what I was going to ask. You just experimented because what happened for me was as it became from love to help,
Yeah,
I felt my vulnerability of not being able to hold a boundary, that the love was going to create an expectation for me
yeah,
that started to actually have me afraid.
yeah,
And so I had to get back into myself and really sit with that before I could go back and really sit with him in that first experience of just love.
yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And the other thing that there is another side, and I think you're right about the masculine and feminine form of this, but we'll find out in a second. But the other thing is there's this great quote, and it says, it was from an indigenous tribe, I think it's in Peru, and they said, if you're here to help, no thank you. If you're here to work together for our mutual freedom, let's get to work. So there's some way in which we feel that in our systems as well, I noticed. But out of curiosity, how many of you guys in any time today in the eye contact actually felt a sense of love for the person across from you? Looks like it's pretty male and female. Yeah. Yeah, awesome, great. Okay, so we're going to move on to the actual thing that we're here to do. But there was a reason we did all that stuff besides that it felt groovy, is that we want to stay in this place to do this work. So what we do to ourselves is we tell ourselves, oh, you can move, but you're going to move right back, so don't worry about it too much. So what we tell ourselves is once we have things like criteria on the board and a goal on the board, like you hear this all the time in companies when I work with them, they're like, yeah, this connection thing's great, but I got to get shit done, that kind of thing. My experience in one of the reasons that I can do so much with so little time is because I prioritize connection. The principles of my company is, first principle is connection, connection, connection. Because when we are connected, we are far more efficient. And you can tell that if any of you guys have been in a startup and it's like 5 guys and 4 women, they're like, whoa, we're doing this thing, and they feel really deeply connected, like how efficient it is. And as soon as the politics moves into that company, it just slows everything down. So that's why I prioritize connection, because it is deeply efficient in my experience. So let's try that out. Let's see what it's like to stay in connection, stay in faith, and we're gonna do an experiment on the last part, but we're gonna use this real life thing to do it. So our goal here is, and at the end of this, you're gonna write it in your, some way on text or email, and she's gonna put something. Nicole is gonna put something up, so where to put your ideas. But we're gonna try to find an idea for an X Prize. Right? And it needs to be around mental and emotional development. And the criteria it needs to be something that hasn't been solved, clearly. I would even say challenging. It needs to be quite a challenge. It needs to be something that can be solved within 2 years. And I would say most people don't think it can, but you think it can. It needs to be measurable, right? So it's not like this, which wasn't so measurable, right? It needs to be able to be accomplished by a team of under 20. And it needs to be something that people think is unlikely, the challenging part. So that's what we're going to try to come up with. And we're going to do it in a very particular exercise that really speaks to the whole idea of no attachment to the path and no attachment to the timeline. So we're going to see what, and this is called in, if you know spiral dynamics, there's these things called teal organizations. I highly recommend a couple books, Reinventing Organizations, especially for entrepreneurs who want to create a unique kind of culture. Reinventing Organizations and Keegan's book out of Harvard called The Everyone Culture, and they speak to this kind of thing. But we're going to do what's called the advice process. And so the way that that's going to look is you're going to sit in your pairs, we're going to get connected again, and you're going to come up and you're going to announce an idea that you have for the X Prize. And then the person across from you is going to say one thing that it's missing. So one thing that stands against it. So what stands against it? And then the person, again, is going to think about it for a minute, takes time, have silence, have connection. Maybe it doesn't take a minute, and then they're going to iterate on the idea based on the feedback. So in advice culture in companies, what happens is you have like a list of things to do, so to speak, and everybody picks whether they want to lead the project, advise on the project, or just follow the project. And if you choose lead, then you have the decision making. So it's the CEO doesn't have the decision making, the person who chose lead has the decision making power in it. So the decision making power stays with the person whose idea it was, but their job is to seek advice so that they can iterate on their idea and get better. But what normally happens in companies is somebody says, well, I think, we should make elephants purple. And somebody else says, yeah, well, that's a problem because the consumers really want pinkish purple elephants. And then the person whose idea was purple either defends it, blah, 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 or they're like, oh, bad, I'm not so good, I have a bad idea. Right? We're going to avoid that. So the way we're going to do that is once the person gives what stands against it, the first person is just going to say, thank you very much, I heard what you said. That's it. Thank you very much, I heard what you said. They're going to iterate, and then they're going to come up with the idea that's on the advice. It could be the same idea. There might not be any change because they're the ones who's leading. And then we're going to move from that to the second person, and they're going to come up with an idea, and then they're going to see what stands against it, and they're going to iterate on it. Does that make sense? Have I been really clear about this? Okay, I'm going to, because I've always noticed things go a little haywire at this point, right? So I think that the X Prize should be a virtual reality set that's proven to solve PTSD. Virtual reality isn't something that's going to be price efficient for the people who are most likely to be traumatized. Thank you very much. I appreciate and I heard you. I want to make an app that's proven to help people through PTSD. That's how it's going to go. And again, this person's going to say, an app is better, and is there a way we can do the app so it's not just on smartphones because those most in need don't have smartphones? And then that's the end of it. That's what we're going to do, and then the other person's going to go. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, back into your pairs. Let's start with a little connection. And the reason we're doing this, again, is because to have a vision that energizes you, you cannot be committed to your ideas. You can't be committed to the path or the timeline. All you can do is be committed to the outcome. Okay, like take 1 minute of silence, reconnect. And the job in this one is to stay connected. The job in this whole exercise is to do it with connection. So your body now knows what it feels like to be in connection, so your body will know when you're out. Okay, I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes apiece. You have 6 minutes. Go ahead and do it. Stay connected. Shh. We're about halfway through. Check in with your sense of connection. Check in with your attachment to your idea, the process of the timeline. Just check in. Go ahead. Keep on going. Don't worry, you'll have more time to talk in just a minute. Yeah. So check in. How are we doing on connection? How are we doing on faith? How are we doing on our attachment to a result that's determined by an idea or a path instead of just the end result? How are we doing with our feelings? Right? You start getting into intellectual debates and all of a sudden there's emotions, but they don't get felt. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do what you always do when you build a vision. After you talk to one person, you talk to 4 people. So go ahead and by the way, this is how it works, right? Visions are built this way, is that you have you get a sense of connection with some person around a vision, and then it just broadens and broadens and broadens and broadens until it becomes a movement. Yep. So go ahead. Your team of 2 is going to pick another team of 2 and sit in a square. If we can do this quietly, it'll go quicker and we'll have more time for the cool stuff. We got 2 right here. Okay, shh. As soon as you found your 4, pick a person who you haven't made eye contact with and take a little time to make some eye contact. Looks like most of you sat that way like you're looking forward to it. Okay, shh. Just connect with this new person for a couple of minutes. Notice that once you get in the habit of connection, it's a lot easier to do it the second time. Again, nothing to project, nothing to defend. Nothing to trans out from. Okay, keep eye contact. In just a moment, we're going to do the exact same process, but we're going to do it with 4 people. So it's really important to be succinct in this exercise. Otherwise, it'll become like those meetings that we all try to avoid. Each of you guys will have a turn to have an idea, present your idea, have 3 people give advice on the idea succinctly, and then to iterate on the idea. We won't go through the advice process twice. We don't have the time. But so each person will share the idea, get 3 pieces of advice, and iterate on the idea. And again, I just want to remind you that this is all about staying in connection, staying in faith, not being particular about the path or the idea? Okay, you guys will have about 12 minutes to do this, so each person will get basically 3 minutes. I'll let you know when halftime is happening. Go ahead and start. Okay, shh. We're about halfway through. How are we doing with connection? How are we doing with being attached to the ideas? How are we doing saying thank you when we get feedback? Okay, go ahead. Okay, shh. Okay. If everybody in silence can pull out their phones and email their idea to contact@transtechlab.org for an X Prize, if you're willing. Unless you actually want to go and create the X Prize on your own without any help from TransTech, which I doubt is the case. Please share the idea and we'll see what happens. So we'll take just a minute to do that. If you do it now, it'll get done. Say it again. X Prize. The best X Prize. The very best X Prize. All right, well, let's see what comes out of connection. Anybody want to share theirs verbally in the group just so we can hear some of the ideas that popped out? Please, in the back, yeah.
I'd like to revolutionize the process of forgiveness and acceptance through exploring the attributes of a unique set of personalities so that you can see that in the other, accept it within the self, and then release because you've had that internal recognition.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. And how did that transform as you got advice?
Yes.
Awesome. Where did it start?
I'm sorry?
Where did it start?
The concept?
Yes.
It started with my own
Meaning,
ability to forgive.
okay. Rock and roll. Okay, who's next? In the back there, yeah. I will take the pink sweater first.
A VR tool to reduce the negative impact of violent gaming and violent pornography on people. So it creates a whole biological state addiction. So VR tool to help reduce that.
And where did when you first said the idea to your partner, was it the same? Okay, and has it changed at all in the details, or has it just stayed constant?
Definitely some good input.
Okay, yeah, great. Right next to him, yeah.
On the principle that attention is our most precious resource, I'd like to build a system that catalogs exogenous demands on our attention, accounts for them, and allows for them to be taxed.
Tax those things that take our attention. Fascinating. Awesome. Please, go ahead. Can you stand up when you talk? And yeah.
Pen pals without borders, a way that we can communicate with one person instead of Facebook broadcast. Develop a relationship with somebody over time, somebody who lives in another country, and you have sort of adopting somebody into your family as a friend.
Awesome. Thank you. In the back, yeah.
We want to eliminate the way that parents and schools punish kids for lacking social emotional skills by meeting every one of those opportunities with
Awesome. By the way, kids in schools is my philanthropic passion. So if you actually do something like that, let me know at that email address or that website. Who else? Yep.
It's a television campaign and a social media campaign to encourage and support people to have sex only when they want to, and to do it then have done it then only exactly what they want. And my partner raised another question, so I added on to that an app you could wear like a Fitbit that would register when your steps are turned on and would beep and remind you to ask yourself this question: what do you really want to do? What do you really want to have done to you? And what do you not want to do and not have done to you?
Wow. Very cool. Yes, please.
Develop a technology to teach people how to leave their physical bodies safely and easily.
Wow. Yeah, please.
Reduce the mental health issues from 20% of the population to 5%.
To reduce the mental health issues in the population from 20% to 5%. Yeah. Amen. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Some kind of a baseball cap or hat that when you put it on and your mind starts cycling into the default mode network and you're suffering there, you're in a loop. It just whispers into your ear or squeezes you and says, oh, it's all right.
A story on that one. When our daughters were young, it was incredibly stressful, sleep deprived, and my wife and I had the habit. Anytime either one of us walked into the house, we'd give each other a 1-minute hug. And oh my God, it reduced the anxiety in that house so much. What a beautiful idea. What else? Yep.
To quadruple the amount of time that humans spend in face-to-face eye contact and to gamify that process.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. Thanks. To increase the time that people spend in face-to-face contact, I'm assuming eye-to-eye contact, and by gamifying it. So to increase connection time. We have time for one more. Go ahead. Yes.
I want to create a holistic, decentralized community platform that facilitates the expansion and harmonious motion of a community through using holocene and plugging in all the different puzzle pieces for governance, social networking, charting collective and individual evolution, and self-discovery plugged together into one holistic platform.
So an open source platform for community building and self-discovery. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Okay, so I'm unfortunately out of time. So first, I want to thank you all very much for just participating so willingly. That means a lot, makes my job really easy. So thank you very much for that. And so this is a good way to contact me. My daughter's birthday party is tonight, so I have to leave pretty quickly. So if you need to talk to me face-to-face, do it in the next hour. And so that's a good place if you have philanthropic ideas particularly around consciousness with children, 'cause that's where I focus. Or if you are needing help culturally in a company or coaching. I don't have room for probably either of those two, but I have a network of folks who can help bring this kind of work into your company so that this kind of connection happens as a regular thing in your company instead of something that you experience for an hour and a half at a workshop. And investment, you can go to One Earth Capital, which I'm sure it's on the thing. So thank you very much, and take 1 minute to just thank your teams and thank each other and acknowledge it. Yeah.